The darkness was suffocating. It wasn't the kind found in the dead of night or the shadowed corners of a forgotten room. This was something else, a void so complete that it felt like it had weight, pressing against his skin, crawling into his lungs. Then came the sound, a low hum, mechanical yet organic, like the heartbeat of something enormous. And then, light. Dr. Elias Kane gasped as his vision adjusted to the sudden brightness. He was lying on a cold, metallic surface, his body stiff as though he had been frozen for centuries. His fingers twitched as sensation returned, a prickling wave rolling through his limbs. He sat up with effort, his breath shaky. What the hell happened? Memories rushed back like a flood. Earth! The abduction. The blinding beams of light tearing through the night sky. He remembered the panic, the helplessness as he was lifted into an alien craft. But nothing after that. Just void. Now, he was here, wherever here was. The room was massive, the ceiling stretching impossibly high, pulsating with bioluminescent patterns. The walls looked almost alive, shifting and morphing, forming strange alien symbols that he couldn't decipher. And then he noticed them. He wasn't alone. Scattered around the room were dozens of others, humans, some stirring, others still unconscious. Their clothing was varied, scientists, soldiers, civilians. A cross-section of humanity, plucked from their lives without warning. Fear gripped Elias's chest as he staggered to his feet. A voice cut through the air. Remain calm, subjects. The awakening process is disorienting, but your vital functions remain stable. Elias turned sharply toward the source. Hovering above them was a figure unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall, with elongated limbs and a head that seemed to split into delicate tendrils, each moving independently. Its eyes, or what he assumed were its eyes, glowed with a pale blue light. It wore no visible clothing, yet its form was adorned with intricate patterns that shimmered with every movement. "Who are you?" Elias demanded, his voice hoarse. "I am Overseer Tivan of the Hegaran Collective, and you, all of you, are part of an experiment that has been millennia in the making." The word sent a shiver down Elias's spine. Experiment? What kind of experiment? Another voice chimed in, a woman with a military stance, her face hardened by discipline. Captain Naomi Voss, if Elias recalled correctly. Tivan's gaze swept over them, unreadable. "The fate of your species has been altered today. We have observed humanity for eons, fascinated by your potential and your limitations. But we have wondered, what if you were given the means to evolve? What if we could unlock what lies dormant within you?" Elias felt his pulse quicken. "Evolve?" Tivan raised a spindly hand. Suddenly, pain erupted through Elias's skull. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his head as memories and sensations not his own flooded into him. He could feel his muscles shifting, his bones strengthening. He could hear, not just hear, but sense, the heartbeats of those around him. He could see beyond sight, feeling the presence of energies unseen. It wasn't just him. Around the room, others were writhing, gasping, as if their very DNA was being rewritten. And then it stopped. Elias panted, beads of sweat dripping from his forehead. He felt different, stronger, sharper. His body felt like it had been reforged in a crucible of pain and fire. He met Captain Voss's gaze, and he knew they had changed. All of them had. Tivan observed them with quiet satisfaction. "Your transformation has begun. You are no longer the same humans who walked the soil of Earth. You are more." A man from the crowd, a young engineer, stepped forward, fear giving way to fury. "You did this without our consent. We are not your playthings." Tivan's tendrils quivered, a motion that could have been amusement or annoyance. Consent? Does the cocoon ask permission before the caterpillar becomes a butterfly? You have been given a gift. You can either embrace it or waste it. Elias clenched his fists. The heat of something new surged through him, a power he couldn't yet understand. But one thing was clear, they were no longer just human. And whatever this experiment was, it was far from over. The cold metal walls of the containment chamber pulsed with an eerie, bioluminescent glow. Aiden's breath was shallow as he scanned his surroundings, his mind racing to make sense of the fragments of memory that surfaced like pieces of a shattered mirror. The whispers of the alien voices had subsided, replaced by an overwhelming silence that pressed down on him like a physical weight. He wasn't alone. Across the room, other humans stirred, their eyes flickering open with the same confusion and wariness he felt. Some groaned, clutching their heads as if struggling to process the influx of newfound awareness. Others remained motionless, their bodies frozen in what seemed to be suspended animation. Aiden pushed himself up, his muscles aching from disuse. He took a cautious step forward, his bare feet making no sound against the smooth, glass-like floor. His gaze fell upon a woman sitting against the wall, her hands trembling as she stuttered them in shock. "Hey," Aiden called softly. "Are you okay?" The woman flinched and turned her head toward him. Her dark eyes widened, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then she nodded slowly. I think so. Who are you?" "Aiden. And you?" "Lena," she whispered. "Do you know where we are?" Aiden shook his head. "No, but I think we're being watched." As if on cue, the chamber's walls flickered, revealing a series of pulsating, transparent panels. Beyond them, shadowy figures moved, their elongated forms barely distinguishable against the glowing backdrop. The aliens were observing them. A deep, reverberating voice echoed through the chamber, not through the air, but directly into their minds. The experiment progresses as expected. Conscious awareness has been successfully restored. Now, let us see how they adapt. A surge of panic rippled through the humans as they turned toward the source of the voice. Aiden clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He had no idea what kind of experiment they were referring to, but he wasn't about to let them treat him like a lab rat. A new figure emerged from the shadows, taller than the others, its smooth, obsidian-like skin reflecting the chamber's faint glow. Unlike the other observers, this one wore a flowing robe adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and shimmer as it moved. "Welcome back to your true nature," the being said, its voice dripping with something akin to satisfaction. "You are no longer bound by the constraints we imposed upon your kind. Now, you will understand what it means to be human." Aiden's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" The alien tilted its head. "For generations, we have controlled the limits of your species' potential, dulling your instincts, suppressing your true intelligence, and shackling your innate abilities. You were our creation, a species engineered to be docile, compliant, manageable." A murmur spread through the group. Some humans gasped, others shook their heads in denial. Lena gripped Aiden's arm, her fingers digging into his skin. "That can't be true," she whispered. "Can it?" Aiden wasn't sure what to believe. Everything in him rebelled against the idea that his entire existence had been nothing more than a controlled experiment. But something deep inside, a voice he'd never heard before, whispered that it made sense. "Why now?" Aiden asked. "Why undo what you've done?" The alien's piercing, luminescent eyes bore into him. "Because we have no choice. A threat far greater than you could comprehend is coming, and only by unshackling your species can you hope to survive." A heavy silence settled over the chamber. Lena found her voice first. "You're saying we're supposed to fight for you?" The alien inclined its head. "For yourselves. We have manipulated and guided your kind for eons, believing you were safer in ignorance. But now we realize that the very thing we sought to suppress, your untamed spirit, is the only thing that might save us all." Aiden exchanged glances with the other captives. Some still looked terrified, others skeptical. But a fire had ignited in his chest, a spark of something he couldn't quite name. "And if we refuse?" he challenged. The alien stepped closer, its expression unreadable. "Then your species will perish, along with us." A sudden tremor shook the chamber, and the glowing walls flickered violently. Distant alarms blared, the sound a sharp contrast to the oppressive silence that had dominated the facility moments before. The alien turned its head sharply, as if listening to something beyond human perception. "They found us," it murmured. "The enemy is here." Aiden barely had time to react before the walls around them shifted, revealing corridors bathed in crimson emergency lighting. The other humans tensed, waiting for orders, waiting for something, anything, that made sense. But Aiden didn't wait. He took a step forward, his newfound instincts guiding him. "Then I guess we don't have a choice." If we were meant to be more than what we were, it's time to find out what that really means. Lena nodded, determination replacing fear in her eyes. Let's go. Together, they stepped into the unknown, the weight of their newly awakened humanity pressing down on them. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it not as pawns in an alien experiment, but as something more, something unstoppable. The walls of the alien laboratory trembled as the distant echoes of rebellion raged beyond. The once sterile corridors of the observation facility were now stained with the marks of humanity's awakening. Within the containment chamber, Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears as he watched the other captives shake off the haze of oppression that had clouded their mind for years. The experiment was failing, not in the way the aliens had expected, but in the way that spelled their downfall. Ethan turned to Dr. Liana Vesic, who had spent years deciphering the alien technology that once subdued them. Her fingers danced over the console, bypassing the encrypted systems with precision. The data streams flickered erratically, indicating a network-wide breach. "They are trying to lock us out," Liana muttered, her breath shallow with adrenaline. "Not for long," growled Captain Harlow, gripping his makeshift weapon, a jagged piece of alien alloy fashioned into a crude but deadly blade. "We've spent years as their subjects. Now, it's our turn to teach them fairly." A deafening alarm blared through the corridors, a war cry from the overseers. The alien wardens, with their elongated limbs and void black eyes, began their counteroffensive, moving in synchronized formations to suppress the uprising. Their neural disruptors buzzed ominously, but the humans had already begun adapting to their tactics. The experiments that had been designed to study and control them had instead granted them a heightened resilience. The doors hissed open as a squad of overseers stormed in, their bioweapons crackling with lethal energy. Ethan barely had time to react before one of the humans, a former athlete named Ramirez, lunged forward, tackling an alien to the ground and pummeling it with raw fury. The others followed suit, using their instincts and newfound strength to overwhelm their captors. Ethan seized the opportunity, pulling Liana toward the main control panel. "Can you access their security feed? We need to find a way out." Liana's fingers moved in a blur, bypassing alien protocols. "I'm in," she confirmed, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar symbols. "There's a central power core. If we take it out, the entire facility will go dark." Captain Harlow nodded. "Then that's our target." The group pressed forward, navigating through dimly lit passageways as the facility descended into chaos. The sounds of battle echoed from every direction. Human captives who had once been docile test subjects were now a force of nature, a wildfire defiance spreading through the halls. Ethan's mind raced as they approached the power core chamber. He had spent years trapped within these walls, enduring every test, every psychological manipulation the overseers had inflicted. Now, he was about to turn their own creation against them. The chamber was heavily guarded. Dozens of overseers formed a tight perimeter around the core, their energy weapons humming ominously. They had anticipated the rebels' plan. The moment the humans entered, a storm of plasma fire erupted, forcing them into cover. "We need a distraction," Harlow hissed, scanning their surroundings. Ethan's gaze fell upon a conduit running along the ceiling. "If we overload that, it could create an explosion big enough to scatter them." Liana nodded and quickly began rerouting energy through the system. Sparks erupted from the walls as the core's stabilizers flickered. The overseers turned their attention toward the anomaly, and in that instant, the humans struck. Harlow led the charge, his blade slicing through the air. Ramirez tackled another overseer, while Ethan and Liana raced toward the main control terminal. Plasma fire scorched the walls as the battle reached a fever pitch. Liana worked feverishly, sweat dripping down her temple. Almost there, just a few more seconds. An overseer lunged toward her, its clawed hand reaching out. Ethan intercepted, slamming his fist into the alien's elongated skull. Pain shot up his arm, but he didn't falter. He couldn't. "Done!" Liana cried out. The facility shuddered violently as the power core overloaded. A deafening roar filled the chamber as a chain reaction ignited within the alien infrastructure. Overseers screeched in confusion as their systems crashed. The lights flickered and then died, plunging the entire complex into darkness. Ethan felt a surge of triumph as he turned to the others. "We're not just escaping," he declared. "We're taking this whole place down." Harlow grinned. Then let's make sure we finish the job. As the chamber crumbled around them, humanity's vengeance burned brighter than ever. The overseers had forged their own downfall, and the experiment that was meant to control them had instead unleashed something far more powerful, the unbreakable spirit of mankind. The chamber's dim light flickered as the remaining captives huddled together, their breaths shallow, their eyes darting between the towering alien figures that loomed over them. The air was thick with anticipation, fear, and an unspoken challenge. Something had changed since the last experiment, something even the aliens hadn't anticipated. Dr. Elias Carter stood near the transparent containment barrier, his fingers unconsciously tracing patterns against the cold surface. The other survivors, hardened by suffering, now looked to him for guidance. They had spent weeks trapped in this unknown structure, subjected to cruel tests that seemed designed to measure human endurance, intelligence, and emotional thresholds. But now, something new had emerged among them, an undeniable unity, a sharpened instinct, a power that had not been present before. The experiments had awakened something within them, and their captors were starting to take notice. Beyond the containment barrier, one of the alien scientists, whom they had named Solvek, observed them closely. Its elongated, metallic fingers danced over the interface of a floating control panel, monitoring every heartbeat, every neural impulse of its subjects. The researchers had expected the humans to falter, to break, to surrender to despair. But instead, they had evolved. The fire in their eyes burned brighter than ever, and their bodies, once weak and malnourished, had grown resilient. Elias turned to Mara, a former Special Forces operative who had become his closest ally in this ordeal. "We need to act soon," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "They are watching us too closely. They know something's happening." Mara nodded, her muscles tense. "We don't wait for them to make the first move. We take the fight to them." Their chance came sooner than expected. A deep, echoing siren wailed through the facility. The lights overhead flickered in rhythmic pulses, casting eerie shadows against the sleek, metallic walls. The aliens, typically methodical and composed, were moving with urgency now, their holographic screens filled with unfamiliar data streams. Elias exchanged a glance with Mara. Something's wrong. A sudden tremor rippled through the chamber floor. The prisoners staggered, gripping onto anything stable. Beyond the barrier, Solvek and its fellow researchers barked orders in their guttural, mechanical tongue. Panels lit up with flashing warnings, and in the distance, a loud explosion reverberated through the corridors. Mara wasted no time. "That's our window." She sprinted toward the entrance, where two towering guards stood, their weapons humming with energy. Before they could react, a group of captives surged forward, their collective strength overwhelming. The guards fired wildly, but their shots went astray as Elias and another prisoner tackled them from behind. The battle was brief but decisive. Elias grabbed one of the fallen weapons, his fingers instinctively finding the trigger. Mara did the same, her military training kicking in as she adjusted her stance. "We move fast," she commanded. "They won't give us another chance." The group stormed into the hallway, where chaos reigned. Fires flickered from shattered machinery, and the strange, blue-tinted walls were marred with fractures. Whatever had caused the disturbance was working in their favor. Solvek and the remaining scientists retreated toward a secure control room, their movements frantic. Elias had never seen them this afraid before. Mara glanced at Elias. "We take them down, we take control." They pushed forward, weaving through the labyrinthine corridors, taking down resistance as they went. The facility's security was faltering, overwhelmed by whatever internal conflict was unfolding among the aliens themselves. As they reached the control room, the door hissed open, revealing Solvek standing in front of the main interface, its elongated eyes flickering with what could only be described as fear. The alien raised its hands, not in surrender, but in what appeared to be an attempt at communication. Elias hesitated. Solvek had always observed them closely, but had never been cruel like the others. It had almost seemed curious, and now it looked desperate. Mara raised a weapon. No second chances. But Solvek spoke, this time in heavily accented English. "You must listen." The word stunned them all. Elias stepped forward cautiously. "Why should we?" Solvek's gaze flickered between the humans, as if assessing whether they would understand. Your escape is not enough. They will not stop. You must end it. End the experiment forever. A deep tremor shook the facility again, followed by another explosion. The walls groaned under the pressure of whatever force was attacking the station. Mara tightened her grip. What's happening? Solvek hesitated, then spoke again. A rebellion among my kind. Some of us believe the experiment is wrong. We fight to end it. Elias exhaled sharply. It all made sense now. The chaos, the failing systems. The aliens weren't just observing humanity. They were divided about their own actions. Solvek reached out, pressing a command on the console. A massive schematic of the facility appeared, highlighting a central core pulsating with energy. Destroy this, and it all ends. Mara's eyes narrowed. Why should we trust you? Solvek's voice grew solemn. Because you are no longer subjects. You are something more. For the first time, Elias saw something resembling respect in the alien's gaze. He turned to Mara. We take the core. We finish this. She nodded, determination burning in her eyes. Then let's end their experiment. As the alarm screamed and the walls shook, the humans, once captives, now warriors, charged toward their final battle. The chamber shook violently as alarms blared across the facility. The experiment had spiraled out of control. The alien overlords, who had once observed their human subjects with calculated detachment, now found themselves at the mercy of the very species they had sought to control. The human spirit, an unpredictable force, had been unleashed beyond their comprehension. Elias and his group sprinted through the corridors, the flickering red lights casting elongated shadows on the metallic walls. Behind them, the screams of the fallen echoed through the structure. The aliens, once the omnipotent architects of this grand experiment, were now scrambling to contain the chaos they had unwittingly unleashed. The central control room is just ahead. Olivia shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. Elias clenched his fists. We end this now. As they reached the towering doors of the control room, Marcus planted an explosive device on the locking mechanism. The group took cover just as the charge detonated, sending a shockwave down the corridor. When the smoke cleared, they stormed inside. The chamber was an architectural marvel, its ceiling an enormous dome covered in pulsating energy streams that formed a celestial map. At the center of the room stood a massive console, its holographic interface displaying streams of alien code. And before it, the Overseer, the chief architect of the experiment. The Overseer was unlike the other aliens they had encountered. Taller, clad in an intricate exosuit of gleaming obsidian, it exuded an aura of calculated precision. Its elongated fingers moved swiftly across the interface, attempting to override whatever had triggered the rebellion. You misunderstand, the Overseer said, its voice eerily calm. This is not chaos. This is a natural order correcting itself. Elias raised his weapon. Natural order? You enslaved us. The Overseer tilted its head. No, we enlightened you. A holographic display emerged before them, showing humanity's history. Wars, famine, suffering, each moment manipulated by unseen alien hands. The Overseer gestured toward the images. We have been with you since the beginning, guiding, shaping, ensuring your survival. Olivia stepped forward, her eyes burning with fury. Survival? You've treated us like lab rats, experimented on us, controlled every aspect of our evolution. The Overseer remained composed. And yet, here you stand, stronger, united. It gestured to the destruction around them. What you call an uprising is merely the next step in the design. Elias narrowed his eyes. You expected this. The Overseer nodded. Your defiance, your rebellion, your unbreakable will, this is what makes humanity unique. Every time we pushed, you evolved. Every time we suppressed, you resisted. It was never about controlling you. It was about testing your limits. Marcus growled. We're done being your test subjects. Elias turned his gaze to the central console. How do we shut this place down? The Overseer's expression darkened. You cannot. Olivia rushed forward, slamming her hands against the console's interface, attempting to decipher its functions. There has to be a way. The Overseer side. This station is linked to every experiment we have ever conducted across galaxies. To shut it down would be to erase eons of knowledge. Elias raised his weapon. Then we erase it. The Overseer regarded him with an unreadable expression. If you do this, you sever your connection to us. You will be free, but you will also be alone. The universe is far more dangerous than you know. Elias didn't hesitate. We'll take our chances. With that, he fired at the console. Sparks erupted as alien glyphs flickered and faded. Olivia and Marcus joined in, unleashing gunfire upon the intricate machinery. The Overseer made one last attempt to intervene, but a final, well-placed shot sent the entire system into a catastrophic overload. The station trembled violently. Alarms blared once more, but this time it was not a warning. It was a death knell. Time to go. Olivia yelled. The group sprinted toward the evacuation pods as the station began to collapse. Explosions erupted throughout the corridors, debris raining down upon them. The Overseer remained behind, standing before the dying console, watching as centuries of knowledge vanished in a cascade of light. As they reached the escape pods, Marcus slammed the launch sequence. The doors sealed shut just as the floor beneath them gave way, sending the pod hurtling into space. From the viewport, they watched as a massive station crumbled upon itself, imploding in a final burst of energy. The last remnants of the experiment were gone. A heavy silence filled the pod. The weight of what they had just done pressed upon them. They had freed themselves from their unseen masters, but at what cost? Elias finally exhaled. We did it. Olivia looked out at the vastness of space. Yeah, but now what? Marcus grinned. Now we decide our own fate. As the pod drifted toward the blue marble of Earth, humanity stood on the precipice of a new beginning. No longer test subjects. No longer pawns in an ancient game. For the first time in history, they were truly free. And as Elias looked back at the dying embers of the alien station, he knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning.